everyone, and welcome to the EMDR Maven podcast. I'm Julie Miller. I'm a licensed professional counselor and an independent addiction counselor. I'm an EMDRIA-approved basic and advanced EMDR trainer, an EMDR Institute regional trainer, and an EMDRIA-approved consultant and certified therapist. I provide basic and advanced training through the EMDR Development Center. You can learn more about that at the website emdrdevelopment.com. This is season 2 of the EMDR Maven podcast. We're going to be discussing the use of EMDR therapy in the treatment of addictions, both substance and process addictions. And you can develop confidence with this population as you listen to the podcast, attend trainings, including my own trainings on the EMDR Development website. I'll be happy to discuss any of your questions here on the podcast. We'll also have some other EMDR consultants who specialize in this area talking about their work. On the website, there are free courses and free trainings that you might find helpful. I host an EMDR no-fee study group on the last Wednesday of each month, except for December, from 12 noon to 12:50 p.m. Arizona time. This group is for anyone who's completed the EMDR basic training, and we can talk about addictions there as well. So send me an email, and I'll be glad to send you the link to the Zoom room that we use for that consultation group. Again, you can contact me at jmiller4721@gmail.com. So send me an email with any questions you have, or if you'd like the link to the no-fee study group on that last Wednesday of the month. jmiller4721@gmail.com. This is the third part of my conversation with Susan Brown of California about the use of EMDR therapy with addictions. Susan, as you may remember from the last episode, is a seasoned psychotherapist with over 35 years in private practice in San Diego, California. She specializes in the treatment of complex developmental trauma, addictions, and other maladaptive coping patterns. Her clinical approach integrates internal family systems-informed processes with the EMDR therapy standard protocol. These integrated approaches reflect her commitment to nuanced, client-centered care. Susan served as principal investigator in a pioneering pilot study that applied an EMDR integrated trauma treatment program within an adult drug court setting. She co-authored multiple book chapters and scholarly articles and is widely recognized for expertise in working with complex trauma populations. She's a sought-after educator and presents nationally on the integration of EMDR and IFS, offering specialty workshops and advanced trainings. She's been a regular presenter at the EMDRIA International Conference, including plenary sessions and full-day pre-conference institutes. In addition to her clinical work, she's an EMDRIA-approved consultant and facilitator for EMDR basic training, mentoring clinicians in the application of EMDR with complex clients. So let's welcome Susan for part 2 of our conversation. So what advice do you have for EMDR therapists who work with addiction clients, especially these situations where they're in an agency and then maybe the client is in an addiction outpatient program, a group every week, or maybe even intensive outpatient, 3 groups a week, but they're meeting with the client themselves individually. So they know EMDR and they treat addiction. What kind of suggestions do you have for how they can start using EMDR with their addiction clients?
Great question. And my answer is, it depends. Right. So one question is, what is one of the most important elements of what keeps them using? So what keeps them from their sobriety?
Mm-hmm.
That could be a trauma and will be somewhere down the line. But what about just cravings? The power of chronic craving. So I have used targeting craving and urges as a target unto itself, more Jim Knipe style than with that whole detour protocol. But that is absolutely something that you can use early on, as
Mm-hmm.
long as whoever is going to do EMDR therapy, any kind of EMDR therapy with a client, actually knows that population.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the most important thing because they're so complicated and because it can be a life and death thing.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to know your subjects,
Right.
the subject of addictions and compulsions, and
Right.
maybe not so with every issue we treat.
Mm-hmm.
This one, yeah. So if you are not familiar with working with addiction, don't do EMDR with it.
No, right.
So you,
That you have to know the population.
I find parts work especially heartwarming
Mm-hmm.
in the earliest phases, maybe when they're still using in a facility in rehab. But the first thing I touch upon with those clients early on is getting to know the part or parts they use and why they did that
Mm-hmm.
and befriending those parts.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a shocker to most people
Mm-hmm.
because not only does everybody else hate that they use, but they do. They hate those parts. They have self loathing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first thing to liquidate, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I think it's a good point.
And, you're mostly in phases one and two, I think, when you're in early. But if parts work is phase two and a huge component of phase two, great. Because you really want to know that system anyway,
Mm-hmm.
where you head on into trauma work.
Mm-hmm.
But contrary to popular opinion, um, and I think you have too, been able to do bits and pieces of actual trauma work processing with people who are not quite sober.
Mm-hmm.
Do any EMDR, can't even have a session with somebody who's high.
Right.
But when they're not, we can tread into some of that territory and do bits and pieces of what keeps them using.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And focusing on the triggers or the urges,
Yes.
maybe even, I've done a little bit more research into the Hase protocol, the Crave X, and found I really like that protocol. And I
Hmm.
think it really speaks to why people pick up again after years and years of not using or drinking, because the addiction memory is still there and active. It's unprocessed. So it keeps getting triggered and it keeps fueling that. But it may be years between using periods where all of a sudden now they're using again and they're like, what happened? What happened?
Well, thank you so much for reminding me that I've left out such an important piece of the puzzle: addiction memory.
Yeah.
Right. So that is one of those early stage interventions. There's a video clip it's probably in a couple of the workshops that I've given, of a young guy whose obsession is putting the heroin on the foil and snorting it like 20, 30, 40, 50 times a day.
Mm,
So obviously not sober.
right.
Um, and just revolving around this obsession. Well, that's a good example of an addiction memory.
Yeah.
So that was the target.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, he's not obsessing about that anymore. He's moved on.
Mm,
That is some powerful stuff.
that is very powerful.
Unbelievably.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you for reminding
That's I think I don't know why if I've though I've read the protocol, I've used the protocol, I was attending a training that he did with Mark Nichols. So it was online and I thought,
Mark
"Well, I
Nickerson.
I know about Cravex, but to hear it from him and the slides that he had, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I missed this, but
Yeah,
that memory just sits there and it
right.
gets reactivated over and over and over. And until we process that,
Yeah.
every time that person gets reminded of that particular memory, there's going to be a trigger for using, the cravings are going to come. And it can also be, memories of relapse as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I have much more appreciation for that protocol, even though I used to use it. I have much more appreciation for that thinking than I have in the past.
Yeah. So again, each thing we're talking about, addiction memory is a target.
Yes.
Craving is a target.
Yes.
Trauma is a target.
Yes.
That's how I ended up mushing them all together because they're all just targets.
Yes.
You can, I guess it's how our brain works. If we do better clinically helping our clients with a certain structure, good. If that's what works, use it.
Right.
My brain just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It just is integrative. It's just how it
Uh-huh.
works on its own. So
Mm-hmm.
each thing is a target. It makes it much easier to use these integrated protocols. All of them
Yes.
have so many gifts to offer. Yeah,
I think that's really, really key. Because
yeah,
when I learned standard protocol, it was like, that's what I used. It was
yeah.
a cookie cutter, and that's what I used. And it made these shape cookies, and
Right,
that's what I wanted. And I was sure the clients wanted that too. And then I learned about this, and then that was another shape cookie cutter, and we
right,
used that and made everybody happy. And I
right.
totally get the idea of integration of pieces and parts
Yeah,
because I think there are great options like the detour resourcing. I love
yes.
that. And I use that a lot. I call it the healthy, sober self that I use the RDI protocol. And it just creates something a little bit different. It's a future healthy
Hmm.
self. Not
Hmm.
everybody needs that, but that for some people that can be really helpful.
Right.
And then the resourcing that is part of the detour protocol and so on. There's just a lot that we can kind of create and get to work. The problem with that, from my perspective, is it's hard to do research on that and replicate because so much of what you do, Susan, is individualized.
We
So
can't.
the research, it can't be done on that.
No, it
Yeah.
can't. When people ask me for my protocol, I say I don't have one. That's the point.
Right.
But there is a process to it, I think, that makes sense in its own right. If you
Mm-hmm.
think of the umbrella of the way we do understand how the brain works and can be
Mm-hmm.
changed, altered,
Uh-huh.
and we have to resonate with these different approaches. If we don't resonate with them, we're not going to be able to use them helpfully
Right.
with
Yeah.
clients. And so that there's such a plethora of tools to pick from
Mm-hmm.
that you can use.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do what works for you as an EMDR therapist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Any other advice you think of that you might want to offer?
I can tell you that we need a lot more therapists willing to work with this population
Yes.
because I hear from clinicians that it's just too scary. They're worried about their clients relapsing, dying,
Mm-hmm.
the therapists themselves being overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
the level of trouble
Yeah.
addictions can create. But I have to say, they are some of my absolute favorite clients.
Yeah.
They're deep, they're bright, they're creative, they're sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
and they usually feel very alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the groups work so well.
Yeah.
Connection, building that rapport
Yes.
between us and a client, in and of itself is so healing. Don't let the steps and stages of treatment scare you. Just create that safety, create that relationship, learn what you need to learn that's
Mm-hmm.
out there
Mm-hmm.
in abundance about using different aspects of EMDR with addiction
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and try it.
Yeah. I continue to see in the basic trainings that I do people who work with addiction, but they're afraid to use EMDR with them. And they often have untrained supervisors, people who don't know EMDR. don't
Yes.
know anything about
Yes.
EMDR with addictions. And so that basic training is sort of wasted because
Mm,
they're not using it. If all they're doing is working with addiction client, they're not using it because they
mm,
don't think they can. So I talk at length in the trainings about addiction and how you can use it and referring to additional trainings and so on. I think that there's people that are reluctant to work with addiction in general, like you're saying. And then this idea of integrating EMDR into that to work on anything else other than trauma
mhm,
is misunderstood
mm.
and basically avoided for some reason. I don't understand how that's happened. I think maybe it's just an outcome of people's beliefs about addiction and the old idea that you can't use trauma work with somebody who's newly sober or still using that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So partly I'd like, this season of the podcast is all about EMDR and addiction. So it's
Mm.
something I'm hoping will reach other people that don't know about using EMDR with addiction and get them interested in looking at additional trainings and finding ways to do EMDR pieces and parts or little bits and that sort of thing. I can't remember what term is it that you use, bits and what?
Oh, just bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces. That's it.
Yeah, and every little bit, I think, with addicted clients is helpful.
Yes, exactly. It's more
Uh,
than they would have gotten.
yes,
Yes.
yes, and that's the complaint I hear the most from clients is I can't find anybody to work with.
Mm. So I know you have trainings that are online.
Yeah,
Um, would you tell folks who are listening how they can seek out your trainings, or maybe do you do individual consultations still? Would you work with people?
yeah, I still do individual consultation on this subject, so I'm not doing certification or any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yes, I am. And on my website, there's just a page of all the trainings.
Nice. And what's your website again?
SusanBrownLCSW.com.
Nice and easy.
I like simple.
Simple's good. It's easy to remember. So that's great because I think it's so important to just, I mean, I do your trainings because I like learning from you. And I know there's always something that I learn and I've learned from you today.
Oh,
So it's always really helpful to me to keep that fresh and to keep staying open to more and more information. So I hope that individuals who are listening to this season's podcast will be willing to go and check some of this stuff out. The
mm,
thing I really like about your training, Susan, is that at least the last one I saw was you have client videos and you also have sections of conferences that you've spoken at, trainings that you've spoken at, that those are all as a part of that training that
mm,
someone would be taking online. And
yeah,
I just think that's really helpful to be kind of a part of those activities that you were doing at the time.
yeah.
And that there really is an interest in this country and worldwide, but I don't know what's happening. At least in Tucson, it's not happening a lot that people are using EMDR therapy with addictions. There are residential treatment centers that get people nationally and internationally, and that is part of the treatment there,
Mm.
integrated with substance use and mood disorders and so on. But I really keep banging the drum for the use of EMDR with addictions because I think it's so important.
Don't stop, Julie. Don't
Yeah.
give up. That saddens me a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
In California, up and down, I would
Mm-hmm.
say you can easily find programs that integrate EMDR. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
California's pretty progressive as a state in general, so
A little bit.
they're pretty good. I so thank you for your kind words. I love this topic.
Mm-hmm.
It did touch my family pretty personally. We lost
Mm-hmm.
two very important people in our lives to this
Mm-hmm.
dreaded process. One of them
Mm-hmm.
was only 21 years old, and the
Oh,
other one was my husband's best friend. And it
yeah.
was before I learned EMDR.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how this became so important to me was them.
Yeah, that makes
Yes.
sense.
There was no such kind of treatment for them.
Yeah. So you're helping other families not have to go through that kind of pain and suffering.
So I
Yeah.
really hope
Yeah.
so. That's why I say,
Awesome.
if you guys are listening and you have an interest, we need you.
Yes, definitely. And there's resources available on your website, susanbrownlcsw.com,
That's
and
it.
on my website as well. There's trainings and free resources there. So maybe we'll get people excited about it and want to learn and then start using it, because it's so awesome to watch clients going through this process of EMDR. Addictions or not, it's so exciting to watch. I know I would have been so bored with EMDR within 5 years, and I would have stopped using it if it wasn't different every single time I work with someone.
I
Because
know.
I'm ADHD, and so I get bored easily. And so needing to see things happen
Oh,
and watching clients and seeing their neurobiology working, it's so fascinating to me. It just really holds my interest.
thank God. Thank God for
No
that.
kidding.
Good for you. Hang in there and keep trying
I'll
to
keep
get
at
those
it. Don't you worry. I'll
anything.
keep at it. Well,
Okay.
thank you again, Susan, for your time. So appreciate your willingness to share this with other EMDR folks, and your time. It was wonderful to reconnect with you and get to spend a little time chatting about a subject that we both love.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you a lot.
Thank you for inviting me.
And thanks again for joining me in my conversation, part 3, with Susan Brown. In future episodes, we're going to be talking with Hope Payson, who's also an EMDRI-approved consultant, facilitator, trainer, and you may be interested in a documentary that she produced called Uprooting Addiction, Healing from the Ground Up, and that is available on YouTube. You can just do a search for Uprooting Addiction, Healing from the Ground Up. And that was produced by Hope Payson, and she'll be our guest in a future episode. We'll keep talking about EMDR and addiction treatment, and feel free to send me any questions you might have to my email at jmiller4721@gmail.com, and check out the addiction training I have on my website, free trainings and free resources. And that website is emdrdevelopment.com. So until we meet again, everybody take care. Bye for now.